Well, as this movement gets ready to enter into its third month, another chapter in this story is being written now about those who usually write the stories themselves. Over the last few days, several examples of reporters being kept away from the very scene they're supposed to be reporting on. In New York, even reporters with NYPD-issued press passes physically moved from the scene, in some cases being put into chokeholds. There are also several reports of journalists being arrested around the country. And it's causing many to say there's a coordinated media blackout at Occupy Wall Street. Well, our own producer, Lucy Kafanov, has spent several weeks at Occupy Wall Street, both in New York and Oakland. She is back in New York and with us now. And Lucy, before we get started, first, I want to play a little piece of video, and then we can talk about it.
I'm a reporter. I am a journalist. I'm a journalist.
So this video, obviously very shaky, of a journalist being taken into custody. This report, of course, only one of many from what we're hearing of journalists being arrested, journalists who just want to get close to the scene, close enough to see what's going on. So, Lucy, let's talk about this. I mean, a lot of these people issued press credentials, and they can't even be on the scene?
I mean, it's really something that I've experienced firsthand, minus the arrest part. And at the risk of sounding like the whining fourth estate, you know, it's not about the fact that journalists should be treated specially and given special privileges that other people don't have. But in a country that really values itself on its freedom of speech, freedom of the press, that often, you know, talks down to other countries and calls for improvements in press freedoms abroad, it's really quite absurd that the level of media clampdown in relation to these Occupy Wall Street protests has been as high as it's been. I mean, the raid in Zuccotti Park saw several journalists arrested. They ripped off the credentials of one NBC reporter. They had asked a CBS News helicopter to clear the airspace so that they wouldn't capture images of what was actually being recorded. And I've seen both firsthand and spoken to journalists both in Oakland, in Washington, D.C., and here that are essentially kicked off of the scene, prevented from filming, targeted in some places. We even have video of police officers using these high-powered strobe lights to blind the video cameras to prevent from filming. And it's just bizarre that, you know, in the United States, this kind of thing could happen. It almost feels, one veteran journalist that I spoke to said that it was easier to get access, you know, when he was embedded in Iraq than it was covering some of these Occupy Wall Street protests.
Wow, that's so interesting.
I don't know if this is necessary. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, and Lucy, we did see, you were just in Oakland a few days ago, and we did see while you were doing a report, talking to the camera, you were even sort of pushed out of the way by authorities in the middle of your report. But now that you're back in New York, I really want to know from you. We saw this video, just crazy to think that Zuccotti Park, sort of the heart of this movement, the heart of the occupation idea, is now no longer allowing people to camp out. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there, what the scene is like now?
It was quite shocking. So I went down there today, almost completely empty. In fact, there was probably more police officers there than actual protesters. A really, really strange sight not to see any of the infrastructures there anymore. One interesting thing is, although there's a lot of police officers there, I talked to one gentleman asking him if he was NYPD. He said that he was a private security guard hired by Brookfield, refused to give me the name of the company, but the fact that this private public space that's dedicated to for public use 24 hours a day is now guarded not only by police department officials but private security guards is quite absurd. I mean, to prevent against what threat? People with tents, people expressing their First Amendment rights. But it is interesting. I mean, a lot of the people that were camping out, I was told, are now staying at churches. Different churches had opened their doors. And I was trying to get a sense whether people really felt like this was going to be a giant damper on the movement, whether this is going to, you know, slow down, I guess, the efforts, because as you said, this is a very symbolic location. And a lot of folks said that, surprisingly, actually, that they thought it was a good thing because it would allow the Occupy Wall Street people in New York, at least, to think of other tactics. There's a lot of discussion of, for example, doing cold hunger strikes once the snow comes. Doing other sort of more powerful visual events that would get these protests more noticed in the media. And so I don't think that it's an end necessarily, just a little pause.
Yeah, it is certainly interesting, the timing of it, and it is, we've been lucky the past few weeks here in D.C. and there in New York with a little bit of warm weather, but I know any day now the winter is coming, so it is very interesting, the timing of this all. I want to talk real quick with you, Lucy, about tomorrow, obviously a big day, the 2-month anniversary. You talked a little bit about the fact that it's empty, but is there a sense of defeat, or is there real planning going on in terms of sort of marking this important date and taking it to the next chapter?
Well, I really think that tomorrow is going to be a big test for Occupy Wall Street across the country. It is the 2-month anniversary. We did see this wide spate of crackdowns all across the country, and I think that if these protesters are able to turn out massive numbers, and they are planning to do so, whether or not they will or not remains to be seen, if they're able to turn out massive numbers in Los Angeles, here in New York, and across the country, then we will know that this is a much stronger force than we expected to deal with. In New York specifically, I talked to several protesters who said that they are prepared and willing and are expecting, in fact, to get arrested for nonviolent civil disobedience. They're going to try to take over Wall Street or around the New York Stock Exchange area to do a massive sit-in akin to what we've seen in the civil rights era. We also know that there's other actions throughout the day, but at 5 p.m. there's going to be a massive rally with unions, union leaders, MoveOn.org, and other groups organizing. So we think the numbers will be really big, culminating in a giant march across the Brooklyn Bridge. And of course, hopefully we won't see the same kind of response by the police on the Brooklyn Bridge like we did last month when nearly 700 people got arrested there. But I do think it'll be a major test for this movement. If they can really turn out those numbers despite not having Zuccotti Park, despite the crackdowns, it's a much more powerful force than we realize.
And as we have since day one, since September 17th, we will be there covering it all around the country. For now, though, our 2 producer, Lucy Kafanov.